So, um, so it's, again, it's great to see everyone, and it's great to have everybody. And again, as a resource to people in this area, I like to introduce people to people that maybe you don't know, or maybe you don't know what's going on. And so one of the people is our presenter today is Dr. Jackie Faffer from the Naples Senior Center. And I've known Dr. Faffer for many years. I think we've been on a couple panels together. We network with one another. She is probably one of the most dynamic people you will ever meet. And what she's doing with the Naples Senior Center is just phenomenal. And I don't want to steal her thunder, because I know she has a lot to share about her exciting news. So Dr. Faffer, the show is yours. So I'm gonna let you take it from here. And then, at the end, we'll be opening up for some questions.
Great. Thank you so much, Bruce. And thank you to all of you for joining today. I don't know how you feel, but I know after this pandemic is over, whenever that will be, I never want to Zoom again. I really want to see people and hug them and shake their hands. And I just can't wait to take that word Zoom out of my vocabulary. But thank goodness for it, because it lets us move forward. So I'd like to talk with you about the Naples Senior Center, and I'm thinking about it as then, which was pre-COVID, now, during COVID, and in the future. I don't know how many of you know about the Naples Senior Center. I only see a few of you on the screen, so I'm not going to ask you to nod or raise your hand. But I'd like to share an anecdote about how we actually came about. I had moved to Naples to take the position as head of a very small nonprofit. And I received, and this was about 8 years ago, maybe 7 years ago. I'd been here a few years, and I received a call from a colleague who said his 98-year-old mother was moving down to Naples from Boston, and that she was very vibrant and very active in their local senior center, and he couldn't seem to find the senior center in Naples or Collier County. So I thought to myself, I don't know, I guess he doesn't know how to use the internet. And I told him I would look into it and I would call him back. Well, shockingly, I learned that in the entire Collier County, there was not one senior center. And when you think about the demographics of the community, it's a bit shocking. So of course I called him back and said, you couldn't find one because one doesn't exist. But I got together with my board members and a colleague of mine from FGCU School of Social Work. And I said, maybe there isn't a senior center because we don't need one. And I don't want to go down the path of thinking about establishing one if there's no need. So with the Leadership Coalition on Aging, which I chaired at that time, and the nonprofit organizations serving seniors, we commissioned a study in 2012 from FGCU School of Social Work. And I'll never forget how the dean summed up the findings. In one sentence, she said, older adults are alone and lonely. And we definitely did need something to address the isolation of seniors. So fortunately, we were able to get funding from a very generous donor to establish the Senior Center. And the Senior Center was, at that point, a program within a broader social service agency. And as a social service agency, we provided geriatric case management, a small food pantry, some mental health counseling. And we had a very small volunteer department. Well, we opened the doors to the Naples Senior Center 6 years ago, and we had 80 initial members who walked through that door on the day of our first lunch and just loved it. I'll never forget one of the women who came in, little nervous, and I asked her what brought her here. And she told me that she lives in a gated community, but she's very shy. Her husband passed away a year or two before. And since his passing, she had not had a meal with another person. She was financially okay. She just did not feel she had the social skills to venture out and establish a life. Well, she was with us until about a year and a half ago when she went into assisted living. And she's typical of the person who comes to the Naples Senior Center. Our numbers increased from that first year from 80 to over 1,400 members. And one of the reasons the numbers increased so dramatically is that we evolved to become a one-stop shop. And we based everything that we did and do on the needs of seniors. So we began with a 1-day-a-week hot lunch, which we still do before the pandemic. We still did before the pandemic, serving up to about maybe 180 to 200 people. We call it Lunch and More because it's a hot lunch, but it has entertainment after, educational programs, and it's the pivotal piece of our activities during the week. Other activities at the time were very vibrant wellness programs. We have Tai Chi, chair yoga. We have a lot of dance programs, a lot of arts programs. We have lectures. We bring in the sheriff's department to talk about senior safety. We bring in health leaders to talk about health. So the senior center, which evolved to become the jewel in our crown, we consider that program, that activity program, if you will, the place where seniors come to connect, establish relationships, learn, get healthy, and form a sense of community. About 2 years after we opened our doors, I was approached by a gentleman from the Brookdale Foundation on Aging, not related to the Brookdale Senior Housing, totally same name, totally different group. And he said to me, Jackie, how can you say you're the central address for senior services when you don't have any programs for people with dementia? And I said, well, I guess you're right. And he said, I'll give you a little seed funding and let's see what you can do. So 4 years ago, we established our dementia respite program. It's not daycare. It's a 4-hour structured program, like everything else we do, facilitated by licensed, credentialed professionals. And during these 4 hours, the person with early to mid-stage dementia is engaged with 10 to 12 other people with dementia. They do light exercise, they do brain fitness, they do art therapy, they do music therapy, but significantly, it increases their capacity to engage with others during those 4 hours. It gets them to verbalize a little bit more, and it brings a smile to their faces. They have a great time. And it gives their caregivers 4 hours of respite, during which time they can get their hair done, play a game of tennis, go shopping, or go home and take a nap. That program has been so successful that we now have 10 dementia respite groups operating, 8 here in Naples, 2 on Marco Island, and we also established an early memory loss group for people who perhaps have mild cognitive impairment, very early stage dementia. These are the folks who know that something's going on with them. They want to talk about it. They can get here on their own. And our plans after the pandemic will be to increase those groups because there's a great need for it. People wonder about our fee structure. To join the Senior Center at this point, it's $25 a year. And that $25 gives you access to any of our programs, every single program we have. I will tell you that when we open up again, we open up physically again, because soon I'm going to tell you what we're doing now. We will be raising the fee to $10 a month. And we're pretty sure that won't be an issue. People have asked us why we charge so little. And of course, as a nonprofit, we offer scholarships for anyone who can't attend, who can't pay it on their own. So no one is turned away from any of our services because of inability to pay. We have a $35 charge for our dementia respite program for the 4 hours. Of course, it includes lunch. And if you can't pay for that, we have a very generous grant from the state. It's our only state funding, only government funding, where people can come and receive scholarships. We have a geriatric case management program where our geriatric case managers work with primarily frail seniors and help them navigate what they need to do in order to live at home safely and with dignity. So we may connect them up with home health care agencies. We may bring someone in to assess their house to see what the fall risks are. We do an assessment, we do a care plan, and we stay with them throughout their need until we need to perhaps refer them to Bruce when they're ready to move on to perhaps a different living situation. We're staffed by licensed, credentialed professionals in the field of gerontology. Our music therapist is a credentialed music therapist, and our staff of 20 is supported by a core of over 225 volunteers. And it sounds like a lot of volunteers, but we still need more. And the volunteers do everything from assisting in the senior center to being a core support in the dementia respite programs. So that's what we looked like prior to COVID-19. When COVID-19 hit, like everyone else, first we were in denial. We thought, oh, this is going to be okay here. Then we realized it's not going to be okay. And we very quickly closed our physical doors and pivoted to a virtual environment. We also recognized that we would have to shut down our food pantry because our food pantry is in a small space and there's no way it would be safe for people to come in. So we had our volunteers call every single member of the senior center 2 days after we closed our doors to ask the following: will you need food deliveries? What kind of internet or online presence do you have? Do you want? And would you like to use? And initially we had 50 seniors who said they were experiencing food insecurity. And we delivered hot lunches on a Wednesday, because Wednesday was the day they got a hot lunch here, and it was also the day they used the food pantry. So volunteers delivered food pantry bags and a hot lunch to 50 of our seniors, and that was in early March, March 18th. Yesterday, we delivered hot meals and food pantry items to approximately 40 seniors, because 10 of our seniors felt they could manage on their own. We will continue this delivery until we're up and running like we used to be, and until we can open our physical food pantry. Let me tell you about our activities. Our senior center offers a variety of programs on a electronic platform, many of them through Zoom. We have strength exercises. We have yoga classes. We have art tours and talks. In fact, on Monday the 3rd, there was a docent talking about who is Mona Lisa. We have a happy ukulele group, and they meet once a week. We, believe it or not, do you know there's about 40 people in Naples who play the ukulele? And they come to the Senior Center. They used to come physically, now they meet virtually. And it's a joyous group, it's a lot of fun. We have a ladies' discussion group. We have Guy Time, which is a men's discussion group. We have art classes, sing-alongs, Spanish classes. Anything that we did during our days of being open, we said, let's figure out a way we can do it now. Last week, we introduced line dancing. It was a very popular program here at the center. Maybe we had 30 people a week participating, and people wanted to do it. And we found a way to do it. Now, they're line dancing by themselves in front of their Zoom camera, but they're line dancing and they're communicating with their buddies who they used to spend time with here. So I think that every month we're going to be adding more programs. And these programs are open to anyone. You just need to go to our website, go to Senior Center activities, and you can participate in our programs. We now have people participating from all over the United States and Canada. How do they hear about us? One friend tells another. They say, you know, you don't have to go there now. You can do it online. And people surf Facebook, and they see us on Facebook, and they learn about the programs there. So that's the fun things that we're doing. But I thought to myself, what in the world are we going to do for the 140 people who participate in our dementia programs? And much to my amazement, and it speaks to the resilience of the human spirit, we now offer a dementia program for 2.5 hours every single day. And it is a mini version of what we do when people are here. They have brain fitness, they have discussion groups, they have music therapy, they have art, and it provides a phenomenal opportunity for these folks to remain engaged. What it doesn't provide, unfortunately, is respite for their caregiver, because clearly the caregiver has to get them on the program and isn't going to leave them alone. They have to be there. So right now I have a proposal in for some funding to provide home health care 2 days a week, 3 hours a day, to those folks in our dementia respite program who need some help so they can have some time on their own and perhaps get out of the house, or perhaps just go into another room to relax. One of the exciting aspects of doing our dementia services now is that we can take on more members. Before we shut down, we were at capacity and we were beginning to look for a site to have an 11th dementia respite program here in Naples. Well, now we don't have to worry about a physical plant. We're doing it all virtually. So pretty soon you're going to see some articles in the paper and you're going to see some flyers in doctors' offices saying, for the first time in 4 years, we now can open our doors for people to take advantage and participate in our dementia programming. What do we need in order for someone to participate? They have to be 60 years old or older. They have to have a medical diagnosis of a cognitive disability, Alzheimer's or another related cognitive disorder. They have to have an assessment, which we now can do on the telephone, or a licensed clinical social worker can assess them on the phone with a MOCA test that happens, well, I don't want to get political here, but anyway, a MOCA test to assess where they are cognitively. They'll get a brief orientation, and then they can join the group. And they may want to initially just take music therapy, or they may want to sit in and then participate in the discussion group. But it gives us an opportunity to give a much broader service to people who are struggling with this almost epidemic of cognitive decline. We charge $10 a session now for the dementia program, but again, if people can't afford it, we scholarship them. So that's what's going on today. We know now that this is going to be business as usual for longer than we want to imagine. We've made the decision not to bring our seniors back to the facility until we have a handle on this challenge. They are the most vulnerable. We don't have the room to really physically distance. Sometimes seniors struggle with hearing, so they may take their mask off and get closer and talk loud, which is the two things you don't want to happen when we're dealing with social distancing and trying to protect ourselves. So we're putting a great deal of effort into how we can serve our seniors, both to have a good time in the senior center and to get care if they have dementia in this virtual world that we're living in. So that's now, the future. We know one day this is going to be behind us, and while we may not go 100% into the world of how we were before, we know we'll be bringing people together. So what will things look like in the future? And I hope it's the near future. Well, first of all, we're in the process of getting zoning to build a new 30,000 square foot senior center in North Naples. In this senior center, we'll have a lot of room outside for outdoor activities. It will have room for passive exercise. We'll do art classes outside. We'll do Tai Chi outside. So it will enable us to serve the seniors internally in the building, as well as in a beautiful, beautiful environment. The space is 13.5 acres on Oaks and Autumn Oaks Boulevard in North Naples, just east of exit 111 on 75. And of course, a larger space will enable us to increase our programs. Instead of capping our weekly lunch at 180 to 200, we'll be able to cap it at 300. We'll be able to bring all of our respite programs in-house, with the exception, of course, of Marco. Right now, we're scattered about at different churches. What's good about that is then the caregiver, if they want, are right there to use the senior center services and programs. We also know that there are some very good things about learning to do some of our programs virtually. Our caregiver support group now allows people to attend virtually and still be at home with their loved one that they're caring for. So we will continue to have an on-site caregiver support group, but we will also have a virtual caregiver support group. Two of our active groups, Guy Time and Let's Chat, which is for women, when the folks went up north, they had to leave the group until they came back. Well, guess what? We're going to continue with a virtual capacity, so people who leave can still participate over the summer. So we learned a lot. We'll incorporate some of that into Naples Senior Center Phase 3. So good has come of this, but we're eagerly looking forward to bringing people together, because let's face it, the whole point of the Naples Senior Center was to combat isolation and loneliness among older adults. And in order to do that, it's much better to be together. So I'll stop here, and I would love to entertain any questions.
Jackie, so impressive, and thank you so much for what you're
You're
doing.
welcome.
It's so
I clearly love it. I've been
you
doing
can
this a long time. This is the best job I've ever had.
and talk about pivoting. You know, you guys you're doing great, and I'm not
Thank you.
sure about the whole line dancing, the virtual line dancing, but you know, go for it. I do have a couple of questions, and then I'll
Sure.
open it for everybody. Will you repeat your the website if people want to get more information?
Yes, it's naplesseniorcenter.org. And I'm also going to give you the phone number if you want to call and get information. And that's 325-4444.
So 239.
Yes, 325-4444.
And if someone wanted to volunteer, would they just call that number, or they?
Yes, they would call that number. We have a coordinator of our volunteer programs, and we're still bringing on volunteers because they're delivering food. They're making calls every week to our seniors. We do require a background check and fingerprinting, but it's a pretty easy process, and we welcome volunteers.
Excellent. There was a question about how long will it take to build a new center?
Probably a shorter amount of time than it's taking to go through the political process for rezoning. We would hope we would be in the ground in the first quarter. You know, we would have a shovel in the ground in the first quarter of 22. We're told 10 months to a year. We'll figure a year. So I would say we would hope in a year and a half we'll be in the new building.
Okay. And I'm just going to repeat this, but the Naples Senior Center is open to everyone. You don't need to be a certain religion, correct?
Right. The requirements are 60 and over. And for the senior center, you need to be able to manage on your own there. So that's for people who are cognitively okay. Dementia program, 60 and over, diagnosis of dementia. But we are open to all faiths, and we are non-sectarian. We serve everyone. We actually have about 4 or 5 members who are between 100 and 105. So that's fun too.
It's impressive. I'm going
I
to
think there was
unmute everyone,
another
see if anybody
question.
has any questions here. Josephine, you have a question?
Yes, thank you. That was a fascinating presentation about the Senior Center, which I did not know much about. I'm curious to know where most of your funding is coming from at this point, and also for the new building.
Okay, so our funding primarily, it's 60% philanthropic dollars, donations, and 40% grants. The $75,000, our budget is just under $3 million. The $75,000 we get from the government is the only government funding that we get. We do not get any funding from Collier County, so none of what we do is supported by taxpayers' dollars. For the new building, there too, funding has come from generous donors. Patty and Jay Baker gave the lead gift of $5 million, and the Brookdale Foundation has funded in perpetuity our dementia programs, and primarily from philanthropic dollars. Little bit from fees, very little bit.
Anyone else here? Anybody?
Yes, I have a couple of questions for Jackie. Good morning.
Good morning, Bernadette. How are you?
I'm fine. What a powerhouse you are.
Thank you.
I know I've said that before. I'll say it again and again. 2 questions. Let's see.
Yes.
How on earth did you mastermind the meal delivery? Did you contract with a food, excuse me, I don't know what they would be called.
Meal
Well,
Food.
I'll answer the question. How's that?
Yeah, you
we-
know what I'm talking about.
We have our lunches prepared by Wins, and we purchase them.
Uh-huh.
They do give us a nice price, but we purchase our lunches from Wins. One of our staff members picks up 50 lunches, 40 lunches, brings them here, and we have an assembly line of staff and volunteers who put them in bags with the name of the recipient. And this happens the bags are prepared on Tuesday, and then on Wednesday, the hot lunch is added. Volunteers drive up, they have masks, gloves, and our volunteers and staff inside the building take out the food pantry packages and the hot lunch and put them in the volunteer's car. So it's just like the restaurants doing curbside delivery. We don't have the volunteers touch the food, we don't touch it, and that's how we do it. And it's come by sometime on a Wednesday around 11:30. We had Wink News here yesterday, and there was a segment about it on Wink News last night. It's really a fine-tuned machine at this point.
Yes, I think as all your programs are, darling. My second question is on behalf of those who are living in senior living communities. And of course, the boast is that these communities are fully programmed with an abundance of options. But I'm thinking the merit of having some of these residents just get out of the building and interact with a whole new culture, population.
We have people who who are members from Moorings Park. We have people who come here from other independent living places. Not so much assisted living because they aren't able to get here. And our commitment is to serve people who are living independently, with the exception of dementia, living independently in the community. So the answer, Bernadette, is yes and no. But your
Right.
point about wonderful communities offering everything, the people who come to us from communities that are phenomenal basically come because they say they want to go off campus once in a while. And we are that
Yes.
off-campus site.
Yes, beautiful. And let's see, last question for Bruce. Is it possible that this presentation has been recorded so that we could refer others to it who unfortunately had a conflict in their schedules? I can think of about 5 off the top of my head.
Most definitely. I have recorded this presentation and I will be sharing it with everyone a little bit later today.
Great. Can I have it?
Brilliant. Brilliant. Thank you, Jackie.
My pleasure, as always. This has been a lot of fun. There are 2 major challenges we face. One is raising the awareness that there are seniors who need services and want services in a community where it's all about the children. And I understand that we need to look to the future, but we also have a cohort who can experience a sense of belonging, a sense of community from what we're doing. And the other challenge that we have, Bruce alluded to this, is we are open to the entire community. We are not open to just a segment of the community. If you're 60 and over and you're willing to admit it, you come in and join us.
That was great.
But I will tell you that the cohort between 60 and 65 are the kids.
Yes. And the 100 plus are the seniors, as in high school seniors.
we had a woman who just turned 105, and she would come every Wednesday and dance. And it was 104, Wink News came, and they interviewed her, and I was taking her back to her table, and I was holding her arm. And she turned to me and she said, "Honey, you don't have to hold my arm. I can make it from here." And she did. So,
Good for her.
terrific.
That is spirit.
Well,
And oh, one last question. Are you on board with Blue Zones?
Not yet, but at some point we will be. We certainly
I'm
have,
just thinking,
wellness is certainly a major component of what we do. And those were the first programs that we put on a virtual platform because everyone was clamoring. But at some point we will do that, Bernadette.
brilliant, because Blue Zones is always citing examples on the West Coast of people who are still spiritually energized, formed, operative. And it would just be fun if we could have a similar boast in Southwest Florida.
That's a great point. That's a great point, and it's something that we can share. So thank you for that idea.
Sure, my pleasure.
Thank you again, Jackie. It's great. You're such a wonderful asset to our community, and keep up the great work. So
Thank
appreciate what you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you all for being part of this webinar. If you missed it, I am taking a little bit of a break for the next couple of weeks, and then we'll resume my webinars. I already have some speakers lined up for September, some very good speakers, so stay tuned for that. Stay well, stay safe, and please reach out to me if you need any help with any senior housing questions. So thank you all very much. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. Vacation.
Bye. Have a good vacation.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.